kind of saved me from some negative things. And then also, like, I've been really fortunate to have older sisters, people who've been here longer, who look out for me, who've been able to provide me with really, really good advice. And who, you know, I've been able to know I can go to them and say, like, hey, this motherfucker is saying, you know, and, you know, they'll be like, okay, this is what you do. No, this motherfucker is over here saying all this to me and doing all this to me. I can't believe it. How do I deal with this, you know? And they've been able, because they've also been through similar situations, they've been able to, you know, give me really good advice. But really what I've learned to do is endear people to me who fight alongside with me, you know, and who I know not only have my best interests at heart, but even when I'm not around, you know, curb people who would say inappropriate things about me. And that all came from me just being me and people recognizing my authenticity and enjoying that. And so then therefore becoming my friends, like my real friends, you know, and not just people who work with me.
Have you ever been in a situation where you know someone, this person in particular is, you know, talking shit or whatever, or saying some negative things about you, and then you have to play a gig with them?
I just did that yesterday.
So, like, what do you do in those situations? Like, how do you stop yourself from being like, look, bro, you know, or do you just play the gig, or maybe you do say something?
I don't say anything. I've gotten really good, I think, just because of the way that people respond, at acting, you know, at putting the gig first, at figuring out how to separate my personal feelings from my professional feelings, or what has to be done at the time. Like, because you're not always going to be able to work with people you enjoy working with. You're not always going to be in that optimal situation. And so part of being a professional is knowing how to still make music in those conditions, still act professionally in those situations. And so it kind of takes practice, but learning how to smile through things, how to kind of put stuff in the back of your head, how to not always say what you think. And that's how you get gigs too. That's how you stay on gigs, when you are able to separate those two things and keep, you know, just what I'm doing right now, you know, just kind of smile through it, you know, and be pleasant.
Some people would say that for a woman, that's a little demeaning. It's like, because women are supposed to be smiling through shit. But, like, isn't this the era where women stand up for their rights, or stand up for the shit that they're going through to make a change? And you're championing, like, don't worry, girl, just smile through it.
I'm not necessarily saying this just for women, though. This is just as much for men. Like, smile through it. Like, I'm not necessarily saying that.
So you're a pacifist?
I am not a pacifist. But what I also realize is that I think being able to, what is most important to me is gaining allies, men allies. And so rather than, you know, feeling like I need to come out and say everything I think on a gig about every, you know, misogynistic piece of shit motherfucker want to come to me and say, you know, inappropriate things to me because I'm a woman, and they think that, oh, I've got you on this gig, I can say and do whatever I want to you. And there's ways to kind of deal with that. You know, I know how to, like, kind of curb certain things. And part of it is the way I carry myself. Like, I don't go out, you know, flirting around with people. And I'm not saying that, you know, if you want to go out and flirt, you know, and do whatever and be a grown woman, that means that you should have to deal with people's unwanted advances. I'm not saying that at all, because that's absolutely unacceptable. But I do say that, you know, I'm very friendly, but I'm not flirty. And I'm very careful about making sure that I make that distinction. And I think people catch on to that. People will still try you, of course. But I think for sure that I'm very careful about the way that I present myself as a musician, because I want that to come through first rather than the way that I look. I realize that people are going to judge me because of the way that I look. And, you know, they're going to hire me because of the way that I look. But there's nothing I can do about that. So rather than worry about that, I worry about making sure that I'm as professional as possible, that I play as well as I possibly can that day, and that I go away from the gig leaving no nasty tastes in people's mouths. You know. But as far as, like, smiling through it, like I said, you know, that's for men and women, not necessarily just women. And I also realize that there will come a time when I'm going to say what I really want to say. But right now, me being young, me still getting into the scene, I have to kind of be careful about what I say so as not to alienate people and so as to make sure that I'm able to gain that capital over time. And so what's more important to me right now is making allies amongst people who I'm closest with so that when I'm not with them, they'll say all the talking that needs to be said, for me.
Right. So what's that breaking point? Like there's got to be a point where you're like, okay, I have to say something because I'm getting disrespected, or maybe you're getting sexually harassed, because in music there is no HR office
to
call, and I feel like women get sexually harassed in music all the time.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing or no one to go to for it. And you have to handle those situations for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So when do you know? Well, what can you tell young girls? It's like, okay, if you gotta say something, then
I'm trying to think of particular situations because, there's been times I've had people say very inappropriate things to me because of who they were. I wish that I felt more comfortable saying what I really wanted to say. And so I think, when somebody starts to put their hands on you or it starts to be too much, you got to be like, hey, I appreciate you having me on this gig and everything like this, but you can't talk to me like that. That's really inappropriate. Do you hear what you're saying to me right now? Because I think sometimes people start talking, they don't really think about what they're saying. Actually, now that I say that, I was on a gig on Saturday, and the band leader, I think he let slip something that he shouldn't have said. And I said, what did you just say? And he's like, oh, nothing. Right. Sometimes you catch people and you say hey, what did you just say to me? Or hey, that's really not cool what you're saying to me or what you're doing right now. Mm-hmm. And when push comes to shove, sometimes if somebody continues to treat you improperly, continues to say things to you that make you feel uncomfortable, as hard as it may be, the best thing in that case is to separate yourself from them, to no longer work with them, to no longer contact them. I've cut people off because, well, for one, I felt like they were taking advantage of me monetarily, not paying me on time, not paying me what they say, and then making excuses for it, And so if I feel like somebody is taking advantage of me consistently and taking advantage of my kindness or my understanding, whatever, I cut myself off from them and I don't work with them anymore. And it's and I found that has worked really well for me. You don't have to talk trash about people. You don't have to cuss anybody out. You let your actions speak for you. Right. Now don't get me wrong. If somebody comes at you absolutely wrong and you feel the need to cut them out, I have nothing. I can't say anything against that because, we all sometimes let our emotions get the best of us. But I've been very fortunate that men have been too intimidated by me to actually say what they think all of the time. And so I haven't had to deal with somebody who has been so, outwardly, outrageously disrespectful on a gig. Okay. Outside of a gig, yes. Once by actually one of the legends, and I actually didn't even know how to act in that situation. I didn't know what to do except giggle, and I was so angry at myself for doing that. But I really he's one of the masters. What do you do? Right. What do you say? Yeah. And that's why I think, and fortunately, one of my former teachers and a musician that I look up to, and I've also played with, was able to curb him a little bit. And that's what I mean by having allies, people who are no, this is not okay, So it didn't go quite as bad as I think it could have, but it was pretty awful. It was pretty bad. It was pretty awful, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Those things are always, they're tough.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just not really talked about in our community.
It's not. And as it is amongst women, but not.
Right.
Yeah.
But the men were just being misogynistic and, doing what men do.
I think oftentimes it's privilege. It's a male privilege. It's not necessarily. I think oftentimes guys don't even realize it. Similarly, in the same way, white people don't realize it because it's invisible. It's not something that you see because you don't have to see it because you don't have to be exposed to it.
So now that's a good segue because I wanted to ask you what kind of social challenges do you face as a black heterosexual woman in New York City playing jazz for a living? You know what I mean? And how has the current events changed you or shaped you?
I mean, I have to say, I think I've been really, really fortunate to not have to be up against a lot of too much from my brothers, from black men. But I think when it comes to maybe some white women, that's where I have probably seen less kind of camaraderie, I guess. Like I've seen a lot of support from black women. We hire each other, we share with each other, we talk to each other, we encourage each other. But I've also been encouraged by my black brothers. My friends have been so encouraging to me. But like white women, there's a couple of them that have been cool, But when it comes to like women who have, more power and more opportunity to help other women, they're more likely to help women that look like them or men than us. Whereas I don't know that necessarily goes both ways. I mean, because there's significantly more white women in jazz. I mean, women in jazz is not a lot of us to begin with. Right. But there's significantly more white women than there are black women. And I think part of that is like access. And I think part of that is opportunity. Black women feeling like there's not a lot of options available for them. Like they're not going to make any money. They're not going to be able to get gigs. That, they're not going to be accepted. That they're going to be treated differently. Which happens in every field, particularly the ones that are male dominated. Sure. But I have to say, like, with the exception of, working with some bands and then kind of feeling snubbed. I won't say which band, but, working with certain bands and kind of like, feeling like snubbed one way or the other I feel like I've been really, really fortunate to not really have to deal with too many issues, socially, being a woman in the music. I think I've been really, really blessed because the majority of the gigs I play are with men. Oh, right. Yeah. Well, so,
that makes sense because it's mostly dudes,
Right. But one of the things that I had heard from other black females was that, they have to make their own opportunities because men aren't hiring them. But men are hiring me. Women are hiring me too. Yeah. But, even when I first started out, I was getting probably more gigs with women, but, the more I played and, the better I got and, the more people were exposed to me, the more men started hiring me. That's something else I wanted to talk about was the fucking stereotypes in the jazz community. Because there's like...
What are they?
Well, that if a woman is in the band, she's fucking somebody in the band or the band leader. Okay. And that's not fair because it's not always the case. Sometimes band leaders hire who the fuck they want to hire. Yeah. For whatever reason. Sometimes because they think somebody looks good. Oftentimes it's because they enjoy their company and they play well. Yeah. More probably because they enjoy their company, but also because they play well. It's not necessarily because of how somebody looks or that they want to fuck. Maybe they do want to fuck, but it doesn't necessarily mean the woman's going to let them, And it always falls to the woman like, oh, she's fucking the band leader. Not, oh, the band leader's trying to fuck. Not, oh, this is a good player. He enjoys her playing. Right. He wants her in the band because he enjoys her playing. He enjoys her personality, and he enjoys what she brings to the, to the band or to, to the vibe. And I don't think that's fair. Just like I don't think it's fair that, and this is probably a cliche thing, that women's sex lives affect their careers.
This I can agree with you with.
And that's not fair. Yeah. You should be, a man can go around and fuck every, Sheila, Betty, and Bertha. I don't give a fuck, whatever. And it's fine. But let a woman do it. And you have niggas that never even had sex with her running their mouth saying they fucked her and they didn't, And then all of a sudden it's not about how she plays anymore. It's about, oh, she's fucked this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. And it's nobody's business. We're all adults.
That's true. But, in American culture, for whatever reason, if a woman is having sex with 3 dudes, all of a sudden she's tainted and she's a slut.
That's a problem.
It is a problem.
Slut shaming is a problem.
It's a 100%. I am 100% with you on this one. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, how do you change it? You know what I mean?
But changing attitudes. This is what allies are for. Mm-hmm. You can't. And I've had this conversation with people, and people are like, yeah, it's fucked up. I'm like, well, what are you going to do about it? The next time somebody says some shit about somebody, and the first thing they talk about is their sex life, advocate for that person. Even if you don't like them, just advocate for them because you know it's wrong.
Right.
Like, this is why it's so important to have male allies, because males talk to males.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face and you can agree with me, but if you're not going around and telling other dudes like, hey,